Hello, hello, everybody. I've got some stuff that I'm going to go through today that, as usual, my normal prerogative here is to try to keep this as I'm a big fan of doing the essential 15 to 20 minutes. That's literally what I want to put into. But the thing that I really want to get across today is what I firmly believe that whether a person is watching this live or whether you're watching it recorded, if I look back over the last, I'll say last 30 years of my life, because I'm 51 years old, and if I were to look back and find out, okay, what was it that essentially had the biggest impact on my life? Okay, that's the power of basically what I want to talk about today. If you can narrow it down to one thing, and obviously there's multiple factors, because success is anything worthwhile in life that anybody wants to accomplish. And I really urge and encourage people to set bigger goals. I think people fall short of that one. I mean, the fact that people set goals is huge because most people do not. And I think goals should be stretched bigger because of the fact that it's the whole philosophy that I would rather aim for the stars and hit the moon than aim for the moon and hit the trees. But in the end, if you really break it down, it comes down to what really makes it the simplest factor. Because one thing that you will hear and consistently from me is specifically that yesterday is gone for every single person. It does not exist anymore. And basically tomorrow's promised to nobody. And everybody's heard the philosophy, you got to live like you're going to die tomorrow. Think how you feel when you do that. But what a lot of people don't realize is the second half of that statement. There's a second half. You live like you're going to die tomorrow, but you learn like you're going to live forever. There is such incredible power with that. That's what everybody wants, a balance in life. And that's really where the balance comes from. And the reality is, to reiterate something that I believe I said recently, is the fact that every single person has the potential of 100 lifetimes. I mean, you can't even fathom. I mean, I don't know what your potential is. I don't know what my potential is. All I know is we're not there. I mean, that's the really key takeaway. And every single person knows that, today's going to happen. And then you're just going to look back, and just like that, you blink and the day's gone. And life is absolutely 100% what we make it. That's really whatever you focus on magnifies at any given point. So there's a saying that says you build your castle one brick at a time. So instead of looking at this is really the nugget that I really want to get out there. This is really and this is, if I believe, if any one single person takes what I'm about to talk about and actually does it, okay, whether this is a person watching on the recording or whether this is a person who's with me live right now, is if any one person actually does what it is that I'm going to talk about, I believe that they would not recognize their life in, say, 24 months. Absolutely no way. They wouldn't even recognize what they've accomplished. And the reality is that what I'm about to talk about, I can firmly say confidently that 99% of people do not do. And there's a philosophy in life. If you do what everybody else does, you get what everybody else gets. So in the end, that's why this is so critically important, because life is absolutely insanely limitless with possibilities. We have absolutely no clue what can be achieved in a lifetime. And I've been fortunate enough to apply what it is that I'm about to talk about. And it has such a drastic impact on my life, the things that I've been able to experience, be able to do. Not just that, we have the ability to touch other people's lives. So we don't even realize how sometimes one thought or action influences somebody else. And then all of a sudden now their life is touched in such a way. And that's why I love that story about the starfish story. The kid that's throwing starfish in the ocean, the guy says, you're wasting your time. You can't possibly make a difference. There's thousands of miles of beach and there's tens of thousands of starfish. And the kid bends down, throws one in the water and says, I just made a difference to that one. We can never forget the power of that. Okay, you're not going to change the world, but you can change the world for one person. So here's basically what you do. And this is literally all I want to get through today, is essentially take, whether it's through a phone. I use both, by the way. Okay, I have an appointment in my calendar every single day. When the day's over, it gets moved to the next day. So it's always there. And here's an interesting thing. I don't know anybody else who has this little specific appointment. The appointment, I literally write the number 12. And then underneath that, I write the number 1. And then I hit return, go to another line, I put 2. And then I literally do this for 24 hours, but I do also list it in military time just because there's 24 hours in a day. So 9 o'clock would be 2100. I'm literally breaking down. And then here's the key. What I'm referring to is, and this is the challenge, and it's harder than you think, but it's also ridiculously easier than you think. You hold yourself accountable for what you do on an hourly basis, not on a daily basis. And if you did this, if anybody does this, if one person does this, you're going to be like, I don't know how else to word this, but holy shit. I mean, it's like, I can't believe how much more I actually got accomplished. So this is literally, you could break it down to components like water. Most people don't drink enough water. So they get hungry, they eat the wrong foods, they don't realize it's their body's just craving water. I go to the extreme of, now keep in mind, if I'm resting from say midnight till 10 in the morning, okay, I'm exaggerating, but maybe not. But either way, and then these are the awakened hours. So I will put a W. There is a statement here that I learned about 25 years ago. It goes like this: where performance is measured, performance drastically improves. And in the end, that's what everybody wants in life, is improvement. Where performance is measured, performance drastically improves. Think about anybody training for the Olympics or any type of competition or training for a marathon or anything. Those are obvious cases because what they do is they literally log what is they're doing. And that becomes incentive in itself. Because if you were to use a journal, which is really what I do, the only reason I use the phone is because I don't always have the ability every given hour of the day to be able to just write everything down in the journal. And some people could say, well, that seems tedious. I don't want to do this. I don't want to sit here and log every hour and every day. Where's the fun in life with that? You got to remember what Zig Ziglar says. So he says, ultimately, you have to, instead of having the context of paying the price, you enjoy the benefit. Okay, it's a transformational vocabulary. You enjoy the benefit of being accountable. You pay the price for not being accountable. That is so ridiculously obvious, it's not even funny. Okay, you enjoy the benefit of being accountable. And most people do not do this. And that's a conservative statement when I say most people. So then what I do when I'm entering stuff in the phone, the cool thing is I can literally be out running an errand and driving somewhere, and I can just use the talk to text type deal, and I can just put down audio. That's it, audio. And now here's my system. You do what works for you. But this is what I do, which kind of manifests and leads into where I've got so much thoughts and ideas, and my energy compared to most people that I know is generally through the roof. But the crazy part is I use the first hour of the day is 12, all right, midnight. Doesn't mean I'm doing it at midnight, but the point is that 12. And then you have 1, then 2, then 3, then 4. So here's my system, okay, if it benefits anybody, is anytime I look at my clock and I see an even hour, I write down audio. And that's what I do. So I'm doing audio, and I'm typically researching what I want to learn the most. So like right now, it could be, there's the thing on Audible. It's like a $50 audio program, but if you subscribe for $15 a month or $14.95, I can get credits, and that one credit buys the $50 audio program. I can either pay the $50 or I do the subscription, which I've done for years. And then essentially I'm able to get that program. And that has speakers like Brian Tracy, Jim Rohn, Dennis Waitley, people I'm sure that you've never even heard of. And the point is this is what I'm getting at, is I will write down audio. So I look at, when you consider the fact that you build your castle one brick at a time, I look at every hour of my day as a brick. It's a brick. And if you actually try this specifically with a journal, on the left side, you're putting all those hours in there. And if you look back at your page, for most people, it would be blank. And people could say, well, I work 10 hours a day, 12 hours a day, 14 hours a day. There is so much insane amount of downtime in everybody's day. Sometimes they can go to work and actually have an earpiece in and listen to audio or listen to Spanish, or they could be on the way home from work or to work. Here's a takeaway from this. If I look at the clock and I see that instead of saying, okay, it's 1:12 Central Standard Time, what if it was 12:50, 12:53? Okay. This is the key. I learned this years ago studying Spanish, is it's better to do it in pieces. If I was to sit and listen to Spanish for 8 hours a day, my mind checked out a long time ago. But if I'm just doing it in pieces, so I will look at the clock and it becomes a reflex. It becomes automatic. And I will see it's 12, or let's say 12:53. There's 7 minutes left in the hour. And boom, just like that. Because it's an even hour, I'm throwing on 7 minutes of audio. And then all of a sudden I have an alarm set and I move it every dang hour. That's discipline. Every hour I move it. And then, so that way I don't lose track of where the clock is at. And then all of a sudden when it switches, then I'm throwing on Spanish. And then I might have other stuff going on, but I could have an earpiece in and I could just let this play. And anybody that I've ever studied who's done, like, I'm talking 7, 8 figures, 9 figures, these people that I've studied, this is what they do. They just literally let this stuff go. I know people that would actually go to bed with some type of speaker, pillow speaker or something. So while they're sleeping, their subconscious mind is being fed. And I'm not getting to that extreme. The point is this: I am just merely suggesting that you do something that moves you closer to your goal. The goal is growth because you're either growing or dying, but you do it on an hourly basis. So my first hour is always, here's an interesting thing. Just on the chat, just for fun, is see if anybody, I got to bring up the chat, of course, but anyways, what would be my first hour? Any thoughts on this? My very first hour of every single day. Anybody have a guess as to what it is? And if you're driving, obviously don't chat, don't text with this one. But on my first hour, I'll give you like 5 seconds, 10 seconds. Anybody have a thought of what it is that I would be doing every single day for the first hour? Automatic, don't even think. Okay. And if anybody actually thinks this or gets the idea, the first hour of every day for me is always the journal. So that gets written in the brick. It's the journal. It's the journal. So that means where I'm actually I put the lines on the paper every single day. And then in the top left-hand corner, there's gratitude. And then to the right of that, there's goals. And I also write down when I rest. I hold myself accountable. So I'll put rest, because then it's amazing for a person to feel like they didn't get much sleep last night. But then when you look at it right in front of you on a page, you're like, wow, I actually got a lot of rest. Don't even realize it. But the very first thing to happen for me is, now keep in mind, that's technically not the first, because of the fact that usually I wake up. This might be part of my age factor, but I will end up waking up. And normally when I get up in the middle of the night is, if I'm only even up for 10 or 15 minutes or something, I always grab a book. Okay, because that's the point where I don't want to stay up for an extended period of time. I'm just trying to be, I just woke up, whatever. But I'll grab a book, and I rarely ever have my 10 page, don't have my 10 pages read well before I woke up in the day, like 3 o'clock in the morning or 5 o'clock in the morning or 1 o'clock. I have no idea, but I write it down in that brick. I put read, and then I'll put a comment of what basically pages I read, what book I read, because I'm usually juggling multiple books. But then when I'm actually awake, when I'm up, that's when I break my journal up. Every single day. And I'm usually doing push-ups with that. I take a deck of cards and I start at the king. I work my all the way down to ace. Every 5 minutes, I'm going through a whole nother set. So even if I did most of my push-ups poorly, okay, because I'm just waking up, the body stiff, what happens is I'm getting a minimum of one absolutely flawless, perfect push-up for every card. With the sixes, I double up just for an even number. So essentially, I'm doing 50 of the most perfect push-ups, but I'm also doing technically more like 350, because I'm actually doing some of them are really good. Some are, I don't even care. The point is it's consistency, but I'll do that like every 5 minutes. You want to talk about an hour going by? So all of a sudden, like every 5 minutes, and then I'm even taking my trading and I'm putting down my FRX, my HFX. I'm putting down what the balance was yesterday. I'm physically writing down what the goal is. Okay, so whether my goal is 4% or 5% growth, and then I write down what that number is, so I know what my target is. And then I put down a line that says profits, and then I put income, because income is important. And then I put down today's balance, which does not get filled in until about 4 p.m. Central Standard Time. So even though I might have been done trading last night, then what happens is I still don't fill it in until 4 p.m. I have an alarm for that to go off. But then the rest of the day, it is bouncing between audio, Espanol, audio, Espanol, audio, Espanol, audio, Espanol. And then all of a sudden you realize that, holy smokes, I'm actually investing conservatively 3 to 5 hours per day in audio programs, and I can jump the theme. I can move it around. So 1 hour it might be on self-discipline, 1 hour it might be on goals, 1 hour it might be on fitness. So I can change up the topic throughout those hours, but the Spanish is always the Spanish. It just keeps going through. And then I've got 3 to 5 hours of Spanish studies throughout a day. And then people are like, wow, how do you speak Spanish so well? And it's like, have you lived somewhere else? And I'm like, well, technically I lived in Cancun for like 3 months, but that was 20 years ago. So it's really about the consistency. That's all it is. But now you can also take it to the next level. So because we have to learn about trading, you got to learn how to make your money work for you. So what if anybody you knew took time every single day and had a block filled out for study trading? Study trading. I'm talking like even 7 days a week. Just one block gets filled out. Does that mean they do an hour? No. That means that at that hour they did something there. It might be 5 minutes, it might be 15 minutes, it might be 30 minutes. It's the story of the tortoise and the hare. I heard an interesting story in an audio program about a guy who he didn't know any better. He was in a race in Australia. It was 645 kilometers. Okay. And by the way, this was like in the last 5 minutes of the hour because I had other stuff going on. And then also I realized there's still 5 minutes left in the hour. And I picked up this thought or idea that just kind of hit me. It was really powerful. This guy grew up on a farm, and they were doing a 645-kilometer race, okay, across from like Sydney to Melbourne. And it was just this long endurance run. And because the people that train for this kind of thing, because based on what they knew as the truth, you run for 18 hours, sleep for 6, run for 18 hours, sleep for 6, run for 18 hours, sleep for 6, and you eventually hit the 645 kilometers. This dude never studied running. This guy grew up on a farm, and that's how he got conditioned. He showed up in like literally not the right shoes and bib overalls. And they're like, how are you even thinking you can even do this? You're competing against the #1 best people in the world at endurance running. Okay, here's the kicker. He didn't only complete the 645 kilometers, he won. He beat everybody, all the top people, because what they knew is the truth. What they knew is what is possible and what can be done. That basically set their guidelines. He didn't know any better. So when he started running, he just kept running. He didn't realize you need to sleep in there. So he just kept going. And then he literally won by a day and a half. He beat everybody else by a day and a half. He set the record. He broke the record by a day and a half. He didn't just won by a day and a half. He broke the record by a day and a half. And then what he did, then the next year, his record was broke. And the year after that, his record was broke. And the year after that, the record was broke. It changed how people think. The reality is this is what I'm getting at, is we create our own limitations. And this guy was not really as good as the best people. He even had a different running style that really wasn't the best. But his running style was also more efficient because he wasn't lifting his legs as high. He didn't burn as much energy. It's absolutely insane. But the point is the fact that sometimes we set our own limitations and our own rules based on what we know. That worked for him because he didn't know any better. He just knew he had to go from Sydney to Melbourne. That was it. You go from here to there. So, I mean, it's a powerful message that's in there, but the takeaway out of that isn't even that, even though you should get something out of that. It's the fact that I found that like in the last 5 minutes, how many people would literally look at the clock and say, screw it, there's only 5 minutes left. It's not worth it. That's my point. That's my takeaway out of this. People are going to look at the clock and say, it's not even worth it. I'm going to get 5 minutes. What am I going to get? You don't know what you're going to get. If you listen to an audio program or anything that is growth related, read a book, study Spanish, whatever else, you never know what you're going to get. But you're going to continue to learn. Well, most people, we're either growing or dying in life. And life is what you make it. I challenge somebody to actually hold themselves accountable. And you will find out that you're going to find out one major awareness. You're going to be like, oh my God, I could do so much better. There's your message. I could do so much better. You look at that calendar and you'd be like, oh, wow, I could do so much better. And then all of a sudden now it's going to get you to raise what your expectations are. Because if you have the ability, it was a goal 25 years ago to make a 6-figure income. Nowadays, it's not unrealistic to make a 7-figure income, especially in this field, potentially 8-figure income, even possibility of a 9-figure income. And it can be done. So the reality is, but if you keep doing what you've been doing, you will keep getting what you've been getting. So my closing thought on this, and then if anybody has any questions or thoughts or whatever else, let me know, just throw it in the chat. But otherwise, ultimately, it's just a matter of breaking down what you're doing on an hourly basis. That's really all you're trying to accomplish. Break down what you're doing on an hourly basis, and then watch how you will find yourself probably accomplishing more in a day than most people accomplish in a week. That's basically it. That's all that to me is probably the biggest gold nugget that I've ever had out of the last 25. Anytime I get focused, anytime I get really serious on what I want to accomplish, I don't look at things daily. I look at things hourly. Okay. And I always ask, okay, if I could only do one thing, what would I do? If I could only do one thing, what would I do? If I could only do one thing, what would I do? And I just break it down, and then that's what I focus on. And what would you do if you knew you could not fail? What would you do if success was guaranteed? These are questions. And the key is to write down those thoughts. I don't care if it's the ability to enjoy life every day is the highest quality you can have. By you rewriting it, that becomes literally like creating a record where it just gets on that track. And then you have the ability to accomplish stuff like you couldn't imagine. And the fact that today is all you ever have. I need to write that every dang day. Every day that gets around, today is all you ever have. Because it really empowers me to also slow down and enjoy the day. And by the way, it's not always about doing something. Sometimes in the hour, I'll write down, just be. That is probably the most powerful goal you can ever set in your life. Just be. Okay, because nothing ever exists outside of right now. And our mind is usually in the past or the future. and you focus on just conscious presence. Listen to the silence between the sounds. Sometimes it isn't about doing, sometimes it is about just being. So it's a matter of having that awareness and making that a conscious thought. And by the way, that's a challenge because you'll find yourself mentally going somewhere else. So you just get yourself rooted in that thought process. That's the other reason I love to run, because I can do that. But it's just a matter of being accountable. So in that hour, like if I go to the gym at 8 p.m. tonight, let's just say, because that's when a person goes that I want to train with, and he already has the goals that I want to have. Okay, I'm just writing down in that hour, I'm just writing down, okay, gym. That's it. I'm writing down, we'll call it bodybuilding, call it building your masterpiece. I mean, whatever you want to call it. The point is, I'm just being accountable that hour for something that's moving closer to my goals. A run, I could just write down endurance because that's what I'm doing, building endurance. And then, so I won't stack things, even though I might listen to an audio program while I'm running. What is the primary goal of that hour? And you will find yourself actually feeling phenomenal. So with that, I'm going to close. Anybody have any thoughts or questions? I'll give you like 10, 15 seconds, then I'll just end the call. But I appreciate y'all being here. Don't forget, next week, we're starting this at 7:30 p.m. And my goal will be done to be done right around 7:50 to 7:55. Keep it to 20 to 25 minutes and then go from there. So if there's not any thoughts or questions, I don't see it on any of my screen. So unless I'm missing something, otherwise 7:30 p.m. Central Standard Time next week. And just somebody do this. Somebody actually take and hold yourself accountable on an hourly basis. And with that, you'd be shocked what'll happen. Appreciate all the time.